Hi. So, Pressure, how do you play this game? Now, I feel like most people watching this will be here because they don't know how to survive the entities. So instead of holding you up, I'm gonna drop some timestamps in a moment, so you can pick whatever you wanna watch. But if, by some miracle, someone who's never even heard of this game clicked on this video, then don't worry because I will summarize the game for you as well. Like every gaming YouTuber does. So here are the timestamps, and I've split these into categories. I will, of course, talk about the game's objective, some hazards in the facility, how lockers work, and lastly the entities. Also big spoilers for this game, so yeah. Alright, cool, you didn't skip this part. So here's what you're in for. Tax evasion, maybe. Yeah, your crimes aren't specified, but you are a prisoner in a high security prison, so it must have been some serious tax evading you did there. But anyway, a company called Urban Shade came looking for prisoners to make an offer, and it's to gather some funky glowing rock in one of their facilities. In exchange, your crimes will be pardoned, so no more jail time. Also, that facility is suffering a containment breach, so there's monsters on the loose. Or entities. Whatever you prefer. So yeah, no big deal, of course you signed up for it. Like, it can't be that bad. So how hard can it be to get that crystal? Well, luckily, you got the shortest route of only having to walk through 100 rooms to obtain it. And then go through 13 more rooms. And then throw down with a massive squid fish thing. Don't worry about it, we'll get there when we get there. So while traversing the facility, you're gonna encounter some hazards, and for some hazards, you literally just have to watch your step. Because I can't recommend you touch leaking steam, electrified water, fire, lava, slam your head on the fan blade or take Minecraft fall damage. By falling down a pit, by the way, just to be clear, there's no actual fall damage in this game. But then you have 3 other hazards that might need a bit more of an explanation. See, this game has swimming areas that sometimes involve green lights that you're supposed to follow, so if you decide to not play by the rules and go off the path, you'll have parasites nibbling at your HP. But if parasites do start to bother you, just go back to the set path and fling your mouse across your desk like an Osu player. But yeah, you can just shake them off by rapidly looking around. Now the second hazard I want to talk about is turrets. And you randomly find these throughout the facility, most often in rooms that have objects scattered around. Because if you do get spotted by one of these turrets, you have like a second to quickly take cover behind these objects and not turn into a Swiss cheese. You'll also hear a beeping noise once a turret spots someone. But these scattered objects are also a good indicator to figure out if a room has at least one turret before you walk into them. And I'm saying at least one turret because rooms can have up to 3 turrets. But these turrets only activate when there's a player inside the same room. So by seeing oddly placed lockers or crates in the next room, you will be able to tell that there will be at least one turret. But anyway, turrets scan for players by rotating left and right and deal 15 damage per shot. So if you do end up getting hit, it's not an instant death. You can also find levers around the room that you can flip to deactivate these turrets. You'll see those on panels with a green light on them. And the last hazard I want to talk about are deaf speakers. Remember when I said that once you obtain the crystal, you have to go through an additional 13 rooms? That is if we didn't skip past that part. Well, that area, which is called the Ridge, only has those deaf speakers there. These speakers play at a certain frequency that causes a shotgun shell attached to the back of your neck to start detonating. I mean, you are a prisoner, so Urban Shade put you up with some prisoner diving gear that has a remote detonatable shotgun shell, in case you try to do something funny. Is detonatable even a word? But you know if it's starting to detonate if you hear a beeping noise. All you have to do is just keep your distance from these speakers and you'll be fine. Sometimes though you'll have to walk through the speakers to progress, but it takes like 10 seconds before the shotgun shell fires off, so you can just walk through it. Speaking of detonating shotgun shells, if you swim out of bounds, just like with parasites, it's also possible that your diving gear starts to beep, just as a second way to prevent you from leaving the map. Alright, that concludes the hazards. Now before I talk about the entities, I first need to mention how you survive them. And this only counts for a certain set of entities in the game, because there are entities you don't need to hide from or simply can't, and those will have different ways to survive them. But for the ones you do need to avoid, there's 2 ways to do so. A more complicated way is using safe spots, which are either out of sight or too far away for the entities to see you. But that can get a bit complicated. So here, I will only talk about the simpler way to survive against entities, which is using lockers. And it's quite simple. You find a locker, you interact with it, and you hide inside them. There will be some catches though, but when do you use a locker? Well, that finally brings me to the entities. Well, this is gonna be a lot of information. So for the entities, there are 2 types. You have node entities and everything else. Node entities follow a set path and just come rushing through the facility to try and kill you, which is why you have to hide in lockers. But again, when do you hide from them in lockers? Well, node entities announce their arrival by flickering the lights. So after the lights flicker, you might want to look for a locker. There's one thing you should keep in mind though. You can't stay inside of a locker forever. Your character has claustrophobia. So eventually, your character will simply hop out of the locker, indicated by rapid heartbeats, which might end up with you jumping into an incoming entity. So as to not do that, you'll want to learn the timing on entering a locker when the node entity is close by. Best way to do this is listening for the sounds these node entities make, to determine how close by they are. But also, your claustrophobia will also worsen the further you are into the game, causing you to continuously have less time to hide inside lockers, which will then require you to get more precise timings. But in general, these timings are not that precise, and it's pretty easy to get the hang of it. Anyway, let's get back to talking about the node entities, because there are some catches to their previously mentioned behavior. But the one entity that does follow these previously mentioned behaviors is the angler. And this node entity flickers the lights, it rushes through the facility. So here's the catch. The angler has variations of itself, which can be distinguished by their color, the noise they make, but most importantly their altered behavior. And I will play the sounds for each one of them, once I'm done talking about them. But there are 4 different variations of itself. You have a brown one, a green one, a grey one, and a pink one. And I will talk about them in that order. Also, here's what the normal angler sounds like. So the brown one, also known as Frogger, will always come back a second time. So where every other node entity just rushes through the facility in a straight path, Frogger is playing a short game of Pong. He just goes back and forth twice. So to deal with him, once you have a locker to hide in, you simply need to hide in it twice. Here's what you do. Just like with the normal angler, you wait for him to get close, then enter the locker. Now once he's moving away, you hop out of your locker and wait for him to come back a second time. And once he does come back and he's close by, you just hop in the locker again. And that's it. Now sometimes if you walk through like a bunch of massive rooms, it might take a really long time for Frogger to bounce back. So if that is the case, you just kinda have to wait. Unless you wanna gamble having lockers in the next room. But anyway, do keep in mind that claustrophobia still exists, so if you stay in the locker through the whole Frogger encounter, you'll most likely get killed once he comes back the second time. That's why you have to hop in and out to avoid the claustrophobia from kicking in. Alright, so next up on the list is the green variant, also known as chainsmoker. And the name is quite fitting because he sure does smoke. He smokes claustrophobic gas. Yeah, don't ask why, otherwise I have to spend time talking about the game's lore. So anyway, can you guess what this stick is? Well, he causes your claustrophobia to kick in faster, requiring you to have even more precise timing on hiding in lockers. And if you thought that was bad, he also moves slowly. So that means he won't rush by, but instead he will just slowly pass by your locker, which probably makes the timing on hiding in lockers even more precise. But he's actually not that hard to survive either, because here's a good piece of advice. If you know chainsmoker is showing up, what you can do is you can stand next to your locker and wait until your screen starts to shake. Because when an angler is really close by, your screen shakes. But since chainsmoker is slow, it gives you a lot of time to react to it. So you can just wait and wait and wait until your screen actually shakes and you just hop in the locker, and that should get the timing right. And yeah, that's it. Alright, now the grey variant, and this one is called Blitz. Now here, chainsmoker was slow, so this guy is fast. Like once Blitz spawns in, you have like mere seconds to get to a locker. But because he's so fast, you don't really have to worry about getting the timing on the locker right, because, I mean, he's fast. So your claustrophobia has less time to kick in. Now there's also some nice things about Blitz. One of the things he does is, he flickers the lights twice. Instead of just once, he does it twice back to back, and that way you can tell he spawned in right off the bat. And maybe it's not the best place to talk about this, but I kind of forgot to mention it. So again, the ridge. the last 13 rooms into the game. Entity spawns are increased there, which is scary on its own. What makes it worse is that the lights don't flicker there. So you won't get the hint that Blitz is active unless you hear him as he spawns. That's why I also play the entity sounds after I'm done talking about them, to get you better prepared for the ridge. Because that place can be brutal, especially if you do lockerless. But anyway, further on in the game as well, when your claustrophobia is like very active, you might want to start timing lockers against Blitz as well. And there's a subtle clue to know when he's moving, and that is his thunder roaring like noise starts off a bit loud when he spawns in. And then once it becomes a little more quiet, then he's on his way. And so if you wait until the sound becomes quiet, maybe you can wait like an extra second or two and then you hop in a locker, because he's gonna be there in like a second. So here's the last variant, called Pinkie, which is pink. And Pinkie will give you schizophrenia. So remember those nice light flickers you get, at least in the first 100 rooms? You're not getting those from Pinkie. Pinkie does not flicker lights when it spawns in. So you're gonna have to listen out for them. Now the nice thing about Pinkie is they have a pretty loud and obvious high-pitched screech. So it's easy to tell if they spawn in, but they're also slightly slower than an angler. So it gives you more time to react. Not as slow as a chainsmoker though, but the speed is in between there. Probably more on the high end. Now here's something truly horrifying about Pinkie. Because the swimming areas in this game make your audio muffled, which makes it really hard to tell if Pinkie actually spawned in. So you're really gonna have to listen out for them and be on edge. So either do that, or enable death mode in the settings. Because death mode causes a fog to appear around your screen when an entity is nearby. So instead of hearing them, you can just pay attention to the corner of your screen and also tell if something spawned in. Though this will not be as effective in the ridge against Blitz. Though you might still see a subtle fade in. So there's actually one more angler. Well, it's not really a variant, it's the same normal angler, except he spawns at the front. He spawns in front of you and moves to the back. So if the lights flicker, just listen for a moment if the angler spawned in front of you, because if you do open the door to the next room, he will just fly by and almost insta-kill you, so you have to look out for that. If a frontal angler does spawn, it's possible that the room you're currently in has no lockers to hide in, but then there will be some in the previous room. And you do have a few seconds to hide, because he only instantly moves if you open the room to the next door. So you got some time. Alright, well, those were just the angler variants. There's still 2 more node entities left on the list, so I sure hope you didn't like the safety of hiding in lockers, knowing that the anglers can't kill you, because we're throwing that out of the window. So anyway, let's talk about Pandemonium. Now unlike the anglers moving on a set path, Pandemonium does the same until he sees you, because when Pandemonium does see you, he will chase you to the ends of the earth, or until he gets to you, which will not take that long. But either way, once you're spotted by Pandemonium, you're just obligated to enter a locker, because otherwise he will just chase you down and kill you. So you might say, why not just preemptively hide in the locker before he sees you? Well, he's gonna see you inside of a locker anyway, because in the lore he has like incredible eyesight. But unless you know what Pandemonium safe spots are, you're gonna have to do a minigame against Pandemonium in a locker. And this minigame involves you hovering a cursor in the middle of your screen, but Pandemonium will fling your cursor around, and if it stays away from the circle for too long, you just end up dying. And this minigame is pretty tough if you're on console, since you like slowly move your cursor around. You can't really like fling it back into the middle, though you might be able to do that on mobile as well. But this minigame is best done on PC, so for any unfortunate soul that has to do a minigame on console, I wish you the best of luck. And by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier, but Pandemonium is just as slow as Chainsmoker until he spots you. Only then does he become fast. So here's the last node entity in the game, and it's pretty rare to get him to spawn in, because I've gone like 15 full runs without it spawning in once. But the entity I'm talking about is A60. And A60 is a scary combination of Pinkie and Blitz. There are no light flickers, and he's fast. So here's what's nice about A60. Just like with Pinkie and Blitz, he gives you a lot of time to react. Like a lot of time. But he will also play a pretty obvious static noise, which is pretty audible from the rest of the game's ambience. In fact, if you have death mode enabled, you will see static run down your screen, which makes it even more obvious. But once he does start moving, you'll have a red text appear at the bottom of your screen, and you will have very little time to react once that red text appears. So hopefully you'll have caught on to his spawn in before that red text appears, and you're already standing next to a locker. If that's not the case, it's still survivable, but you have to be really fast about it. But yeah, luckily he is rare, or at least luckily he's rare for new players. Can't say the same for people that are trying to complete achievements. Dude, where are these people coming from?
Probably me sending the link to Discord.
Yes! Yes! What? Kill
What?
me!
What?
Yes!
Oh, A60.
Finally!
Have you
Oh,
been
I
trying
needed
to...
that document. Worth it. But yeah, that's all the node entities. So anyway, now the other entities. And as I said before, you don't really hide in lockers from them. And if someone mentions hiding from searchlights in lockers, I'm going to murder you. But yeah, don't worry about what searchlights are. We'll get to that part later. So here's an interesting specimen I want to talk about first, because he's kind of relevant to a lot of the facility. Remember those turrets and the deaf speakers I talked about earlier? Those hazards? They're actually hijacked by an AI. And if you know what SCP-079 is, then you know what this AI does as well. Because he's just kind of there to get you killed by other means. Whether that's by the turrets or deaf speakers, or some other entities. So one of the entities that the AI uses to get you killed are good people. And I disagree with the name. So when you're navigating through the facility, you have to like follow these numbered doors, which count up to 100. But sometimes, you're gonna encounter multiple doors with numbered signs. And one of these doors will be real and let you progress, while the others are hiding these good people entities behind them. And those signs are also hijacked by the computer, or AI. Whatever you want to call it, I'll just call it computer, it works better for me. But there are a bunch of flaws with these fake doors that basically call itself out. Some of the most known ways to detect if a door is fake is if it has noises behind it. You might hear some growling, you might hear some scratching, and if you hear that, there's good people behind that door. Another way of finding fake doors is if that door sign sparks. Because occasionally a fake door will have sparks come off of the sign because that computer's not doing a good job. But probably one of the lesser known ways, but also the most effective way of finding a fake door, is getting close to the sign and seeing if there's scan lines running down. Because when there are scan lines running down, it's fake. And they are always visible. You don't have to listen closely for sound, you don't have to wait for a spark, you can just check up, see scan lines, and move away from the door. Just make sure you don't look at the door itself when you get close, because that will trigger it to open the door and get you attacked by good people. So make sure to look away from the door as you check the sign. Now there's even 2 more ways to see if a door's fake, but these are only possible in specific scenarios. But if you're in a dark room and there's fake doors, the fake doors will be always visible from across the room. They'll be bright enough to be seen from far away. But the real door in the dark room, you can only see the sign if you're up close. So don't fall for fake doors because you see them first, and instead only look for the door sign that can be seen up close. And if you want to verify for yourself if this is true, fake doors will still have the same other ways to identify them. The sparking, the scan lines, the noises behind the door. You can check this out for yourself. But the last and 5th way to identify a fake door? I mean, these are kind of getting obsolete, but once an entity spawns in, a node entity, they will always path towards the correct door. And the computer will acknowledge this, and most of the time, I don't know if there's any exceptions, I don't really pay attention to it, but most of the time, the computer will call itself out because it realizes, oh, well, the player saw the angler go to the correct door, so I might as well just give up hijacking these signs. I mean, the player's not gonna fall for it. And you see if these doors are fake because he calls himself out and displays a red text on the fake door signs. Okay, real quick, that was not the last way to identify them because I'm like narrating this like 3 hours later. But if you're in the ridge, the last 13 rooms, there are no door signs. Instead, good people will now be louder in the dark, like the noises they make will be louder, and the entity still path towards the correct door. But the most obvious way to call out a fake door in the ridge is by seeing if there's a light underneath the door. If there's lights under the door, it's also fake. Also, the good people deal 55 damage if you do open their door, so it's not an instant death unlike the node entities. Okay, this is a fake door, right? Yeah. No, this one is real. See, you got a spark, you got some lines, and if you listen closely. Another entity that the computer works with is infestation. But that's only in a specific scenario that I'll talk about later. So infestation is a bull shark with many eyes. His thing is that he starts to damage you if you look at him, but he also has a pull on your vision, so you kinda just have to actively look away from him. But he can also only spawn in rooms that have windows. By the way, did I mention the facility is underwater? Which kind of explains why there's so many fish in this game. Anyway, about that specific scenario that does include the computer, which is called a gauntlet. And in that gauntlet, the computer will lock the doors and trap you with infestation in a room for 15 seconds. Not only that, but infestation will also be enraged, which not only turns him red but also causes him to have a stronger pull on your vision, which basically makes it harder for you to look away, so you have to fight your mouse a bit more. Or whatever other device you're using. But yeah, after those 15 seconds, the doors will unlock and you can just continue. There's one funny thing you can do in a gauntlet though, or at least in some of them. And you can hide next to lockers, or crouch down near the window. And this will avoid line of sight with infestation, which then causes him to no longer pull on your vision. Which then allows you to go AFK in some spot and just wait out those 15 seconds without having to use your mouse. Now if you have a flash beacon, you can do a funny with infestation. If you shine a flash beacon at infestation, you can prank him with a Discord light theme. But this will cause him to enrage for the rest of the game, which also increases his spawns. And if you flash him again, you can outrage him, but you can do that if you have a death wish. But yeah, if you flash infestation, you also unlock the flash beacon to buy in the shop. And you get a badge, so it's pretty worth it because flash beacons are really good. It's a great item. But yeah, that concludes all the entities that the computer may work with. So here's some independent ones, starting with wall dwellers. So did Pinkie not give you enough paranoia? Well, how about a little more? Like their name suggests, they hide in walls. So what they do is they wait for you to walk into the next room, and once you've walked past them, they'll try to sneak up behind you and bend you over. Attack you from behind. Yeah, I'm not phrasing that. But yeah, just don't get snuck upon. If a wall dweller does show up, just look at them and they run away. Though there is a small chance that they come back, so you have to look at them again. You know, just to give you more paranoia that they're not always gone. Okay, here's another entity. Squiddles. And these fellas sit in dark rooms and get angry when you shine a light at them. But yeah, squiddles are there to just give you a little spook by taking away the convenience of using light sources in dark rooms. But you can still use UV blacklights or flash beacons since squiddles just don't aggravate when you use them. UV blacklights don't aggravate them at all, but flash beacons don't last long enough for them to attack you. But yeah, any other light source will get you attacked. And if you shine a light source at them, it takes literally a second before they attack you, so you have to be really quick on the draw to not look at them with a light source. And this is why I can't recommend anyone use a lantern, because it's a whole radius around you, so you can't look away. It's also possible for squiddles to attack you if you just walk up too close to them, even if you don't use a light source. But the time for them to attack you if you're up close takes like, I don't know, 6 or 7 seconds. So if one is like camping a hallway that you have to go through, or camping a drawer that you need to get a keycard from, you have a lot of time to do whatever you need to. Like, you can just straight up walk through them without a problem. Anyway, if you do get attacked, squiddles deal like 25 to 40 damage, so you can take a few hits. Next up is Void Mass. And this entity comes in a variety of colors, but this time they have the same behavior. But the point is, don't enter a locker with purple, green, yellow or red eyes inside of them. If you do open a locker with one of these goobers inside, you will be grabbed and killed, unless you're playing with other players. See, it's possible to save other people out of a locker that has Void Mass in it, but if you're playing alone, since no one can save you, you will just instantly die. But when playing with other players, you will slowly lose health until you die. So yeah, if people are fast enough, they can just save you. Also, when playing with other players, if a node entity shows up and you have nowhere else to hide except for a Void Mass locker, you can just hop in there and have someone else save you. Like, you can survive against node entities in a Void Mass locker. You can't survive against Pandemonium though, I think, because he's probably still gonna see you and just go for your locker and kill you. At least I'd imagine that happens. I have never actually tried it. Don't think that would work though. Anyway, from the top of my head, if you would enter a Void Mass locker at 100 HP, it probably takes like 20 seconds before you die. So you would lose like 5 HP per second maybe. I mean, these aren't like fact-checked numbers, this is just how fast I think you lose HP from my experience. I don't really pay attention to it. Feels like a solid 20 seconds. Anyway, potentially the last entity on the list is Searchlights. And you'll see what I mean by that in a bit. But for now, let's talk about the Searchlights. So these goobers serve as a boss encounter in this game, which there's two of. You have the first encounter, which you'll find around door 60 to 80, while the second encounter is at the end of the game. Yeah, sorry to break it to you, but the ridge, those last 13 doors, is not the last part of the game. This second encounter is the last part of the game. But anyway, for the first encounter, you have to repair generators in quite a spacious room. But the way searchlights work is they have 4 sets of eyes, which emit a orange light. So if you end up walking into their lights, they will see you and fire a hook at you, which will then kill you. Now if you are spotted, you have like a second to get into cover and be hidden. So it's not an instant death sentence, but you should be really quick about hiding. Remember when I said I would murder people if they mentioned you can hide against searchlights in a locker? I mean, yeah, you can. But why would you? See, that spacious room in the first encounter has a lot of stuff to hide behind. And instead of having to do with claustrophobia in a locker, you can hide under stacked crates, you can hide in containers, you can hide under forklifts that are holding pallets, and you'll be fine. You can just sit there forever basically, if you wanted to. Now the best and safest strategy for repairing these generators is wait for the searchlight to pass by. See how the searchlight works in this room is he swims circles clockwise. So once he's past you, you can go for a generator because the searchlight will have to go a whole circle back around to be able to spot you again. Also, it will show you a counter of how many generators you have to repair, and this can differ. It depends if you're playing solo or with more people, because the more people you play with, the more generators have to be repaired. For example, when you're playing alone, it's like 5 generators, but if you're playing with a lot of people, like I've played with 50 player lobbies, we would end up with 15 generators to repair. Also important to keep in mind, the more generators you repair, the faster the searchlight becomes. But I think this also scales with the amount of generators, so for example, if you repair 1 generator and you have 5 in total, he will speed up noticeably. But if you have 50 generators and you repair 1, the speed will be barely noticeable. But yeah, you're very much safe if you do like 1 generator, then hide, wait for the searchlight to pass, and then do another. Like, I've been able to do 2 generators in one go. Anyway, the second encounter is a bit different, because now you're underwater repairing cables. And these cables repair a lot faster actually. But what's also different, or what's majorly different, is the searchlight doesn't speed up. Instead, once you repair enough cables, another searchlight will spawn in. And this can go up to 3. Now, if you're playing solo and you're on the second encounter, you will repair 7 cables. And once you repair 3 of them, a second searchlight will appear. And I think once you repair 5 of them in total out of 7, a third searchlight will appear. And this also scales if you have more cables to repair, like 14 or 20. Also, don't kill me if I got it wrong about it being at the 3rd cable or 5th cable when a searchlight spawns in. But yeah, you don't have furniture to hide under in this area, of course. I mean, it's underwater. Instead, you have a bunch of caves to hide under. And here's some good piece of advice. Because if you start repairing the cables inside of the caves, then later on you're gonna have to repair them on the surface, which you then have to deal with multiple searchlights. So my advice here is focus on the ones on the surface first, and then once the third searchlight has spawned in, go for the ones inside the caves. That way you don't have to deal with the other searchlights. Anyway, once enough cables have been repaired, you have to go to the middle of the map and activate a turret. And once you've done that, you have to go back the way you came to enter this swimming area. On your way back though, one of the searchlights will hover over the path. And this is the final part of the whole game. Now what the searchlight will do is of course scan around with its lights, but there is a pattern to it. Like every now and then, he will move his lights, and if you pay attention and see that they're all splitting away from the path, you can just swim past them in one go. But if you don't want to risk that, there's two pieces of debris you can hide under. And the first one is pretty obvious because it has like one of those green flares near them, so it's pretty easy to see. But there's also a second one, like when you're facing towards the path back, to your left there will be another one you can hide under. But anyway, just pay attention to where the lights are gonna move and just avoid their pathing. That's the best way to go. And once you're past that part, you win the game. You just go back to the airlock that got you into that swimming area in the first place. Don't worry about the giant robot stomping you because he literally can't. But yeah, once you're back through the airlock, just go right and then walk straight through the doors. Eventually you'll walk to some docks and then a submarine comes to pick you up. And once you're in, just close the sub and you win the game. So yeah, that's how you beat the game. Or at least that's how you beat it in its current state. See, the thing is, like I said before with the searchlights, it might be the last one on the list, because the game is gonna get an update probably pretty soon. And some entities are gonna get added. But anyway, that concludes the guide. Now, if you want to learn even more stuff, I also made a lockerless guide video, where I also talk about these safe spots I mentioned earlier. So if you want to learn about those, or just challenge yourself, and try to complete a run without using lockers, that video is pretty useful too. Now I don't like being a sellout, but this is just atrocious. Like, come on. Come on. Anyway, hopefully this guide was helpful and yeah, I'm not good with outros, so bye.